In the 1920s, a Herefordshire farmer, Harry Morris, married his doting young housemaid, Florence, gave up farming and took up the running of a pub, the Wine and Spirit Vaults in St Mary Street in the market town of Ross-on-Wye.
When you walked in, it was just one of those places that looked different.
Yeah.
Usually, my grandfather was sat on the seat on the right-hand side as you walk through the door, and sometimes he had his friend with him, George Wilcox, in the wheelchair, and it was very difficult to get in because of George's chair.
And there was a lot of characters there. Morris Bond was another one who used to come there. Not very often, Morris, because he'd say he'd come up one day and he said, I've got father in the car, you know, he used to talk like that. I wonder if you'll give me 2 bottles of whiskey. I don't know which one he wants, but I'll bring the other one back and pay you for the other one. And she said, you sure, Morris? I don't know about that. And he said, oh, you know me, Mrs. Morris? And he disappeared, he never come back. Oh. That was Morris. She said, I'll catch up with him one day.
I think you just had to be in the know to go there.
Harry Morris, while serving behind the bar, suddenly dropped dead, and Florence's world turned upside down.
The story is that her husband died, and when he died, she was so cut up about it, she couldn't bear to change anything after his death. So everything was left in situ forevermore.
After Mr. Morris, Harry died, I really think she didn't want to be bothered. She didn't want to live, really. I think that was her whole attitude.
Traumatised with grief, she left the house where she'd lived so happily with her husband, moved into the pub, sat in the corner, and for the next 42 years the wine vaults remained virtually as it was the moment Harry died. Dust settled on the bar and the bottles, cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and throughout the 1940s, 50s and 60s, Florence sat indifferent to the stares of the curious and the astonishment of unprepared strangers.
But it was still a nice place.
Yeah.
But they'd got so they didn't do the cleaning and that themselves, and just couldn't pay anybody or didn't want to pay anybody, and there's the same sort of thing, like, you know.
Yeah.
There was the dartboard at the end of the room, and it had been there so long, I think wet had got on it or something. There was a great big bump somewhere down by...
16.
So yeah. And if you played darts, it was no good aiming there, you know. But I remember those bits, yeah.
And Spit and Sawdust comes to mind. The simple reason was you used to go up through the big door on the main street. You walk in and you went like a passageway, and you come to 2 doors. You opened the 2 doors and you walked in, and as you walked in, the bar was sort of on the right hand side. And when you looked round, it was like a traditional bar, but there was more dust and dirt than anything else.
And because it was heavily dusted and you know, hadn't been cleaned or anything like that, it had just been left.
You know, it was amazing. All the behind the counter, it was all covered in dirt and dust and black. It was just unbelievable.
It was difficult because I said many a time, I said I'd love to come in and help. I'd you know, do things and clean up and do things, but no, that was dead against you. You couldn't do that.
Florence's son Les kept the pub open until the early 70s, but other than getting in stock, serving the customers and keeping the glasses clean, little was touched.
If there was a bottle of beer there, that's where it was left. And if there was, it was astonishing. It was cigarette ashtray. That was it. Someone had just pulled the shutters down and walked away.
The pub, now nicknamed the Hole in the Wall, was a daunting place to approach. A walnut tree growing unchecked since a seed was dropped in the early days of their marriage half filled the alleyway leading up to it and made it difficult to pass. Beyond this, and the battered brown doors, in the dingy dark, like Miss Havisham from Dickens' Great Expectations, sat Florence Morris, always in dark clothes, usually a brown dress or a pinafore dress from another era.
There was this old lady over an oil stove there, you know, and she'd be over this thing. She'd never look up, just warm her hands. And, you know, we'd get our drinks, and he'd always say to me, what would you like, dear boy?
Well, I think she planted that when she first moved in to the wine vaults, as it was called. And I think she just stuck it in the soil, not thinking, and then it bloomed and it became a very big tree. And Les used to bring the walnuts home at Christmas. He said, these have all come off Mum's tree. And so, you know, it was a good tree. I don't know how it would you know, develop. I don't know how the walnuts got there, but they did.
Yeah. Oh, the atmosphere as you walked in, it was like going back to the 50s at least, and you looked at the place. I mean, it's dim in my memory now because it is 20 odd years ago, isn't it? But looking at it and going in and seeing the advertising, you know, like Craven A cigarettes and bits and pieces like that, was like going back to the 50s, which I remember quite. Yeah. You know, that was my period, I suppose, really, the 50s, when I started to notice things.
And then there was a door and you just sort of walked through and the dim lights and that was it.
She come across to me, she was a down-to-earth person that used to turn round and call a spade, end of story. If you got on with her, you got on with her. If you didn't get on with her, you bought her ale and that was it. You know, she was cut and dry, no messing about, no airs and graces. If she seen what, she'd tell you what she thought, you know. And she come across very much so.
As you possibly know, the offices here now are the headquarters of Ynet Internet Services. We are an internet service provider. Oh, you really can't get much more high-tech than that, can you? We have our full internet connection into this building. Fibre optics actually come in a conduit underground, come through the cellar and come up through the room ahead of you that you can see on that side, and up into our machine room, which is above, where we have racks and racks of servers. Very high-tech servers with, as I say, an internet connection. I think that's pretty cutting edge.
Florence left the pub in the early 70s due to ill health and died in 1980. Les, her son, died 3 years later. When the building was auctioned in 1984, every corner was filled with bottles, many without labels. Some were still full, some half full, some empty, and many were smashed. Some had been lying there since April 1942.
Nothing was moved. Nothing. And you see, her parents lived in Ledbury and they died, and her brother, her twin brother, he took over the shop they had there, but when the parents died, he brought all the stuff over. I've never seen so many mattresses on top of mattresses. I don't know where Leslie slept. And I don't know where they went to bed because every room was chock-a-block.
With mattresses?
Mattresses, furniture, all sorts of things. A lot of it went in the tip because it was rotten. And
when it came up for auction, I was most interested to see the inside, which is, they said, was exactly the same as it was the day it closed. And it was. I went in. It was astonishing, really, because the place was getting so derelict, and of course you could inspect the buildings and all that because they were wanting you to buy it, sort of thing. So it was all open, but at your own risk, because the floors were rotted in the house itself. The floor, it was a 3-storey house, and all the floorboards were rotted. So you're very careful up there. But then you come down the stairs and back out into the yard. And there was a passageway, you see, and a tree had grown between. You had to get almost on your four legs to get through it. Then I went across the other side to the Royal Hotel and watched the bidding, which the bar was up for sale, and it went for £1,500 as far as I recall. And the bar and its contents was sold. That was every bottle, glass, whatever. An antique dealer from London bought it, as far as I understand. And then he stripped it all out, took it up to London, sold all the bits and pieces, including the pewter bar, and strangely enough, somebody bought it up at Harewood End, not Harewood End, New Inn. They bought it and installed it there, so it went up to London and come all the way back again.